Oh, it might help if I unmute myself, huh? Hey guys, welcome to our weekly show where we answer your heating and air questions live. We are back in Virginia and ready for some heat, but not too much heat like Texas had. Ready for some humidity, but not too much humidity like Texas had. So, anyway, I've got some cool things I want to share with you guys tonight. And of course, we're always taking your questions live. We're going to start out our show by saying hello to a few of you guys. Hey, Gary, Bob, and Gil. Good to see you guys. Steve and Mark and TJ. So, hey, to all you guys, welcome to the show. Again, if you have any heating and air questions, feel free to add those to our chat and we will try to answer those. It's not just me here, there's some other pros that join us from time to time. And if I don't know your answer, maybe one of them will. So, and good to see Carl. So, yeah, I just got back from my Daikin behind closed doors tour of the largest heating and air manufacturing facility in North America last week. We had a good time. In fact, I've already got one video, I would say 92% done. It's not 100% done. And there's a couple reasons for that. There's actually some proprietary things that I'm not allowed to show that they showed me. And so I've sent the video to them just to kind of make sure that everything's okay, that I'm not showing anything I'm not supposed to. And yeah, Gil says it's 109. It was 108 when I was there last week in Houston. So man, I don't know how you guys do it. I think I'm back here in Virginia and we've only touched 90 degrees twice now. So even with the heat index, I don't think it's hit 100. Maybe it has, but there's a whole nother level of heat that you guys down in Texas take on there. So Geo Mac Granddad, good to see you. It says I got 1% battery. Thought I'd say hi before it dies. Go plug that thing in and stay with us. Go plug that thing in. And Emery, good to see you. Aren't Daikin, Goodman, and Emmanuel manufactured by the same people? They're all under the same roof. They're all owned by Daikin, but I don't know if they're manufactured by the same people because there's different product lines. Now that I've been in the factory, I can say that I've seen the different lines and so on. And so anyway, yeah, they are all owned by Daikin, and I can't say all the products are made in that factory, but a lot of them are. There that is one big honking factory. So again, I've got a video that's going to be coming out very soon. I'm just waiting for them to kind of give me the approvals to say everything's okay, that I'm not showing anything that I'm not supposed to show. And I've got one video to go. I mean, ready to go that we're going to launch hopefully in the next few days. And I'm really excited about it. It's unlike any video I've ever done. So please stay tuned. Please like it. Please, please share it. If you like it, share it with your friends. It's like I say, it's unlike any video I've ever done. And I've put more time, effort, and money into this one video than any video I've ever done. By traveling down there and all the things that we did. Obviously I've put quite an investment of time and so on into this one video. Now we're going to be doing a bunch of videos, but this one first video, I think it took me a total of 5 days total, of, editing from beginning to end. And I think it'll come out that way. It's not one of my normal videos where I just sit in front of the camera and I just spout off some tips or ideas and then edit it. This video is more about our whole trip, some of the people we met, and so on. So I hope you guys like it. Again, I'm hoping it'll launch in the next few days. And if you do like it, I want to see it do well. So please, share it and like it and all that good stuff. So as soon as I get there, blessing on it, we're going to launch that video. And so hopefully that's, over the next couple days. So I'll obviously let you guys know. Hopefully it'll be before our next show. So that's the first thing. Steve says, what's editing? Let's see. Craig says, we're going to start out some questions. Craig says, how often do you new TXV out of the box being bad The one I had was a Sporlan 3.5 to 5 ton. It's happened. It doesn't happen very often, but it has happened. I did a whole video not long ago where it's my belief and my experience as well that a lot of TXVs that are diagnosed bad are not actually bad. And so I did a whole video on that, talking about airflow, talking about refrigerant levels and things like that. And so I've seen a lot of TXVs diagnosed bad that the TXV itself actually wasn't bad, but a lot of guys will replace the TXV and then get the charge right. Or they'll replace the TXV and then realize something is still kind of off. And then they clean the evaporator coil or replace the air filter or whatever. And so I just had a guy, one of my own employees the other day called me. He's like, I've got an iced up coil. I think I got a bad TXV. And I said, whoa, hold on. Why don't you thaw that coil out and then let's see what's going on. You got to get it thawed out before you can diagnose that metering device. So, but yeah, no, I can't say I've seen a lot of TXVs bad out of the box, but I've had a few here and there. I'm not as experienced as some of you guys are though, right? Geomac Granddad says he's coming to the eastern shore of Virginia next week. Curious where you're going. Let me know. Are you going to, what's that? There's that town that's literally across the bay from us that everybody, but I never get the name right. Cape Charles maybe, or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to say, I'm not going to say any more names because I'll just sound dumb. But yeah, look, I'd be curious where you're heading to on the eastern shore. There's a lot of cool stuff over there to see, and it's pretty rural, but there's still a lot of cool stuff there. So Craig says, I installed the piston and it fixed it. You fixed it. Brand new system on an install. Steve says, I thought it was always the TXV. That is always the answer, right? Some of the forums that you see guys say whenever they're like, hey, there's a couple of groups that we're in that, they're actually for beginners, that some of the young guys that are still learning, they'll go in there and ask questions, and some of the older guys will give them a hard time, but also try to help them. And they almost always say it's the TXV. So pretty funny there. Yeah. The trip last week, I was privy to some information. I was told about some upcoming products. Unfortunately, I'm not going to go over, any of those products quite yet because I've got to figure out which ones I'm allowed to share and which ones I'm not. But I will say I do got a couple things I want to touch on with you guys because some of you submitted questions to me that you wanted me to ask while I was there. And I will say that most of those questions I did ask, now I will say some of your questions were tough. Some of the answers I got was, they didn't always have an answer or, weren't quite sure. But I did ask most of those questions, and some of the answers that I got, I will also be sharing soon. But again, I don't know what I'm allowed to share and what I'm not as far as that goes. So I will say this, we've got some upcoming videos coming. They might answer some of your questions that you guys submitted. Obviously, if I do a video on it and it comes out, then, it's something that I was allowed to share. And so I just don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to share something that I shouldn't have. But I will say they are working on a lot of new stuff, a lot of cool stuff. I'm sure most heating and air manufacturers are probably working on something. Some of the things that have come out in the past, I wasn't so excited about, but I will say some of the things coming out now, some of the things that are going to be coming out in the next 2 years, I'm really excited about. As someone that sells their products on the regular, I'm really excited about a few of them. The other thing I wanted to just point out is I know a few of you have asked about the Inflation Reduction Act, and I will tell you that Daikin is working on that too. So I don't think I'm I don't think I'm doing anything wrong to say that they are concerned about that they have heard you, and that they want to offer you some solutions when it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act. So I will say that. And the last thing I'll say about the trip that I think I'm okay to say is they're going to have me back, that I'm supposed to be going back on a podcast. Let me share, this podcast isn't really for homeowners, but there is a podcast that they are doing It's public on YouTube, so I think it's okay to be public, with about it here. And let's see, share this tab. So hopefully you guys can see my screen here. This is the YouTube channel, and I put in Ben's name because I knew that it would come up under that. But yeah, they've already got up to almost 500 subscribers. They're belting out some videos, 26 videos, and this is the podcast that I think that they're going to have me on. And the reason I say I think is because I thought that the lady I spoke to said that they only had two episodes recorded. And this looks like they've got several recorded. So maybe this isn't the right one, but either way, looks like if this is the right one, this is the one that they're going to have me as a guest on. So that'll be one time that they're going to have me back. And then they also have a conference coming up that they've asked me to speak at. So, which is kind of crazy. I'm just a small town. I grew up in a trailer park, and I learned how to fix some air conditioners, right? So come a long way, and I'm excited about that too. So let's see. For some reason, it looks like my chat over here that you guys can see is way ahead, or it looks like there's some things popping up there that's not popping up in my normal chat here, which is weird. But anyway, maybe it will eventually. So let's see. Steve says, I thought it was always TXV. Commercial are usually adjustable. And Carl says, when in doubt, it is the TXV. Yeah. So again, if you have any heating and air questions, if you've caught this show, feel free to drop those in the chat. Looks like we've got several pros on here with us tonight. And again, if I don't know the answer to your question, one of them will. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat. And if we get no questions, we'll have a real quick show tonight. Another thing I wanted to share with you guys is I think we might, in a show very soon, on one of our live shows, we might have a guest from one of the folks that we talked to down at the Daikin factory. They actually call it the Daikin, Texas Technology Park. And that's a mouthful. I don't think calling it the Daikin factory does it justice, because it's more than just a factory. I mean, there's a research and development part of the facility. There's actual meeting rooms, and when you call Daikin, I don't know if it's one of the people that was in the cubicles that I saw or whatever, but it's more than just the factory. There is the point. There's a lot there under that one roof. So maybe park is the better word to call it. But anyway, one of the folks that I met down there, I don't want to reveal who it is yet. I feel like I'm being real vague on a lot of things, but I just don't want to be inaccurate. But one of the guys that's in charge of a lot of stuff, let's put it that way, has said that he may be coming on a show with us here live on a show very soon, which that'd be pretty cool. And he would have been on last week's show, I think, but it was too short a notice for him. I think he had something else going. But yeah, that'll be cool. And he's one of the guys that he knows some stuff. He knows some of those upcoming products that he shared with me. I remember I told him, I was like, well, listen, we can talk about them, but I won't release any videos. I won't release this recording until you tell me it's okay. And he said, well, with that, then I'll share a few things with you. So anyway, yeah. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. Any heating and air questions, feel free to do that. Let's see. I did want to, another thing, we have segments every week. And so one of our segments that we'll do sometimes is Ask the Audience, where I ask you guys some questions. And so my first question this week that I'm going to ask you guys is, what are some of the other YouTubers that you follow? And it doesn't have to be other heating and air guys. Although if they are, I'd love to hear them. Maybe it's somebody I've never heard of. Maybe they're an up and comer and, you think highly of them. I'd love to hear about that. But maybe there's some other YouTubers that you kind of follow them a little bit and they put out some pretty good stuff, and you'd like to share that. So feel free to drop the name of the channel or a link to the channel. Feel free to drop that in the chat. I don't know how YouTube looks at that. I don't know if they say it's, good or bad to, for you to drop that. Again, my comment section is not staying up to date here. So let me jump over to what you guys are seeing. Yeah, see, I see what you guys are seeing. See where I'm highlighting this? I see Arch there. But I'm not seeing it in my normal chat over here. Well, let me try. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm gonna try to refresh this. Give me 1 second. It might boot me out, but I'll come right back. There we go. So hopefully that helps us out here. It would not be a live show unless I had problems, huh? So yeah, let me go back up here and see if we get caught up on some of the things you guys were saying. But yeah, if you would share your favorite YouTubers in the chat, hopefully you can hear me, because now it's saying I have nobody in our watching us live, and I don't think that's true, because I'm watching us on at least one other computer over here. So it should at least be a 1 right there. So lovely, lovely technology. Let's see. Steve says, congrats. Thanks, Steve. Emery says, what is the sign of a failed TXV? So there's a couple things. So a TXV is basically a valve. Hopefully you guys can see me. If you can hear me or see me, let me know. Emery just said, is this thing on? So let me know if you can see me or hear me, because now I'm not sure if there's anybody else in here. And I don't know if I'm talking to myself now. Okay, Steve says thumbs up. So yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully you guys can hear and see me. My screen, if you can see what I can see, it says 0, that there is nobody watching, which is obviously not accurate, because again, I'm watching myself. But anyway, so Emery says, what's the sign of a failed TXV? A TXV is essentially a valve that opens and closes. So some TXVs will become stuck. Some of them will stay open and not open and close. Some of them will stay closed and not open. Some of them, the temperature bulb itself is not acting properly. And so to answer your question, I would say the majority of failed TXVs that I see just become stuck in some manner, and they're creating some sort of restriction. Although I have seen some of them where they're staying open or closed. And a good way to test that is if you take the system and reverse it. So the indoor TXV in heating mode should be completely open, and the outdoor TXV and cooling should be completely open. So that way it can, flow refrigerant that way. And my buddy Steve says, I see you're in a big green shirt. You look like the Incredible Bulk. Thanks, Steve. Emery said, so that's essentially when I see a failed TXV, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a valve that is not opening and closing like it should. And so in a lot of cases, it's going to create some sort of restriction. And they're just simply not opening and closing as they should. So that's why there are variables that will fool you, like low airflow, for example, might make you think that, oh, I've got a restriction here. I'm starting to see some ice build up, things like that. And in reality, it's the airflow is the issue. It's not the actual metering device. So BE says, congrats. They liked your info. Thanks, BE. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. Steve says, high subcooling, high superheat. Arch says, good afternoon from Arizona. Hey, Arch. I actually talked about you, Arch, at Daikin. I was telling them about the whole package unit thing and so on. So again, I don't want to get into anything I'm not supposed to, but we did talk about you. I will tell you that. And some of your questions and concerns might be in some upcoming videos. Bruce says, hi, Josh. Good to see you, brother. My contractor put in a 5-inch pleated filter, 16 by 25 inches. I believe I have 3 returns downstairs, but there are no filters in those. We'll leave ductwork. Will leave. So I think he's saying, will the ductwork get dirty? Yes, it will. But as long as you're filtering that air before it goes through the unit, that's not uncommon. I have seen people have return, grills without a filter grill there. And so the return duct itself will become quite dirty. As long as you're filtering that air at the unit, you should be okay. Bruce says, I'd like to add that filter is in the return of the air handler only. Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so we have customers that have that set up. That's not what we do at Griffin Air. If we're doing like a new install, we'll usually put filter grills in wherever possible. But we do have customers that it was already made that way from the get-go. They'll put a filter at the air handler, and they'll have return ducts that get, like you said, quite dirty. So and you can clean them. You can get a duct cleaner to clean those, and if especially if it's bothering you, if they've never been cleaned and it's been a bunch of years and you want to get it good and cleaned up, they can usually clean a return grill pretty easily, usually. Arch says, hey, Carl, what's the weather up north? Both those Arizona guys. Tech Junkie, good to see you. HVAC Survival, HVAC Guy. I watch some of Curtis's stuff too. Quality HVAC. I have watched some of his stuff. And Anti-DIY HVAC. Yeah, he pops up on mine as well. So all good channels, all ones that I watch as well. So I don't think I've seen the HAVAC Survival one as much, but the other guys, I definitely watch their stuff from time to time. So it looks like I am behind again. So I don't know what's going on, guys. My chat is it's not populating like it should. If I go over here and look at the chat where you guys are, I can see where you said things, and then it's not populating in, I use StreamYard as our service, and StreamYard is not doing very well for me tonight. So let's see. Let me see if I can just go by your chats over here and maybe, maybe I've got to update something on my end and do it that way. So let's see. Everybody says they can hear me, so that's good. Carl says, I think wax, moisture are good confusing issues in diagnosing a TXV. Steve says the bulb is the only closing force, so a bulb that's lost its charge will usually pump down. Arch says, thanks, Josh. I'd be interested to hear what you talked about down the road. Yeah, maybe someday. I think there might be a few things, Arch, that never make it on air, at least not for any time soon. But I will say you came up. I'll tell them that. I'll tell you that. And then who knows, maybe someday I'll be out in Arizona and I'll share everything with you. It's nothing huge. It's just, I don't want to share something that I'm not supposed to. So, let's see. Steve says opening force. Tech Junkie says, by the way, I'm taking an online course in HVAC. Which one are you taking, Tech Junkie? I'd love to know which one that is. Share that with us. I just would love if my computer would act right. I'm gonna. Yeah, very frustrating. My chat over here that I usually use, where I can, kind of click it and you guys will pop up here. It's not populating. It's way behind. So anyway. Let's see. He says the one through Preppy and Auburn University. Hmm. Yeah, let us know what you think of it. I think a lot of the courses that, that are being sold kind of depends on where you get it from, right? So there's some that are being sold that well, let me back up. So a lot of trade schools, at least the ones in our area, I have not experienced any of the latest. So let me preface it that way because there are some new teachers at our local community college where they teach HVAC classes, and then there's also a I guess it's like a continuing education or like a trade school that is a part of the high school or some of the high schools in our area. And I've not met the teacher or experienced any of the students. I haven't met any of his students that he is currently teaching. But anyway, I prefaced it enough. I will say years ago, I hired a guy that had been through 2 years of schooling, and they had not even taught the guy how to wire a thermostat. And I was pretty upset for him. I thought that was a little much. I thought if you've been through 2 years, they should at least have taught you how to wire a thermostat by then. They had taught him some things. They had taught him how to braise and things like that. But at some point you have to get off the philosophy of things or the physics behind some of this stuff and teach the guy. If he wants to learn how to fix an air conditioner, you got to teach him how to fix an air conditioner. And so I just felt kind of bad for him because he had come out of pocket with his own money, went through 2 years of schooling, and still did not even know how to wire a thermostat. So I felt real bad for him. So anyway, so there's that side of it, right? There's people that are trade schools that are, I don't want to say you're wasting your money, but it's almost like you've got to go through 10 years of schooling to get to, a, a basic level of knowledge of what we do, it seems like. And then there's this other flip side of the coin. And I don't think that, based on what I just Googled of the school that you're going to, Tech Junkie, I don't think they fall under this, but there are some newer schools out there that they're basically run by these guys that want to teach heating and air guys how to become millionaires overnight, and how to basically jack up your prices and how to sell things and how to, all these things. So it's not necessarily a class that's going to teach you the skills on how to fix an air conditioner or even, install an air conditioner. It's more of how to sell an air conditioner and how to make the most money while doing it and have higher margins and things like that. And so, I'm all for guys making a decent living doing this, but if you think you should be a millionaire after a year of doing this, you're probably going to take advantage of somebody along the way. I'm just saying, that's horrible, but I'm just being honest. So I'm good at that. Just being honest. Emery says, what kind of gauges do you use? I have actually two sets of gauges. I have if you're talking to me, I don't know if you were talking to one of the other folks in here, but if you're talking to me, um, I don't love all of the digital gauges out there. I haven't found a set that I'm in love with. However, I do have the wireless set of field piece gauges that are really handy, and I can put everything, connect everything to my phone, and I can get really quick measurements of everything. I can just walk to a job site, throw my temperature probes on the vents inside, run outside, connect my gauges, my clamps, and I can find out what's going on with the system really fast. And then in addition to that, I keep an old school set of analog gauges. That's what I learned on. And that's, in my opinion, every guy should have a set of those on their truck. If nothing else, for no other reason, if it's raining, if it's starting to rain and you're trying to finish up a job and you got your digital gauges out there, I've actually heard of guys having their gauges ruined. And so aside from that, I also think that if you learn how to do the math and how to properly use analog gauges, and then if you want to go to digital gauges, fine. But it's sort of like my dad taught me how to drive a stick shift truck back in the day, before he would let me drive an automatic, because he said, if you learn how to drive this, you can drive anything. But if you start out the other way, if you start driving an automatic and then, somebody's got a broken leg and you've got to run them to the hospital and the only thing to drive is a stick shift, you're in trouble, So that's kind of how I look at gauges too. I think every apprentice should start out on a set of analog gauges. I know there's guys out there that would disagree with that, but that's just how I feel. So Tech Junkie says it's actually really good for the most part. I also get an EPA 608 and a NATE education hours. Good stuff there. Tech Junkie also says they also have an externship that they will pair you with a company for 40 hours minimum for OJT, but they work with you and your schedule. So that's good. And I think that, I call it the school of hard knocks. You're going to learn more at a company. You spend 3 months at a school and then 3 months at a company. You should, if you're trying to learn, you should learn more, in my opinion, real world experience at the job. But the good thing with the schooling is it does teach you, the math behind things and things like that. Nobody out in the field ever taught me, say, Ohm's law, with electricity. And that does come in handy a lot of times with heating and air stuff. So, I learned that in a classroom. Tech Junkie also says, I also have a 3D VR that has diagnostics, which is integrated with Skill Mill. Yeah, that was actually the reason I asked. The virtual reality is becoming a huge thing. I know Daikin has a school that they're doing some virtual reality stuff. I know there's Skill Cat, and then there's, what's the other big one? What's that? There's another big one. HVAC virtual Interplay. That's the other one, Interplay. So, and actually, since I Googled that, ACA looks like they've got some stuff. So, virtual reality is it's actually pretty cool because, I don't know if it's quite as good as real world hands-on experience, but by gosh, it's pretty close. They've come a long way, haven't they? You walk up to a unit and you got to fix it. It's kind of neat. So, Arch says, in my opinion, honestly, it probably meant honesty is the best policy and you'll have a better chance of building a loyal customer base. Very true. I just listened to a podcast by a guy the other day where he was talking about how a customer had multiple companies come out and try to sell them a system without actually looking at it. And he said, hey, give me an hour here. It's not free. I'm going to charge you for my hour, but give me an hour and see if I can get the system going for you, buy you a little more time. You can save up for your new system. And so he was basically winning a customer for life by taking care of them a little better, at least giving them the option to repair. That's the big thing. You should be able to tell them exactly what's wrong with their system. And here's exactly how much it's going to cost to fix it. And then if you give them that information, but also say, do you really want to put that kind of money into an older system? Or would you rather, go with a new system with a warranty and everything? Then you're giving them all their options there. But, there are times that, companies don't even look at the system. It could be something simple and you can get another year to 1 to 5 years out of that system. Nobody's a psychic. And you've got these guys that are, going right to selling a system. So I think that the money you would make off of a customer for life would far outweigh that quick sale, but I'm sure there's guys that would disagree. Tech Junkie says, I'm pretty impressed with the course. I had 30 days to try it, and I tried to get as far as I could to determine whether it was worth, and I feel it is. Nice. Interplay is also in the course. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. I wish my my chat thing was working so you guys can I could put your your little thing right up down here, but it's not working, guys. I'm sorry. It's every week it's something, right? One week it was the audio, and one week it was my camera stopped working, and this week it's chat. So it's always something. Home Rapid Repair, good friend of mine, says good communication is always key with the customer. He's got a really successful business. Rapid Repair. Share where you're located again. I know it's out west somewhere, but I don't want to speak out of turn. So if you would share where you're located. But anyway, let's see. It's after 9 already. That's good. So we're moving right along. Let me see if I can find my notes here. I told you guys about the going back to Daikin. I'll be going back to do the podcast, but then I'm also going to be doing that conference in October. I don't know how much of that's going to make it as far as how much of that will be good for a YouTube video, but I am going to take cameras with me. So I learned a lot from this trip to Daikin because if nothing else, I need better gear. I was struggling at times with, the gear that we had. So I'm, if nothing else, I'm going to get some better gear and, have a little better setup. But anyway, yeah. So when I go back for that conference, I'm going to take a camera or two with me. And if I go back for the podcast, I'll do the same. So who knows? I might be able to corner somebody and ask them some more questions. So, let's see. Tech Junkie says, I've missed a few weeks here. Been on vacations. Yes, a few. Rapid Repair says, Michigan Home Improvement Channel is going well, my friend. Yeah, he's got some really good stuff. If you guys like home improvement type stuff, check his channel out. Check his channel out if I could talk. And give him a subscribe. He's got some really cool stuff, and he and I chat every now and then. So yeah, give him a subscribe over there. But yeah, if you guys have any heating and air questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'm going to go back to our Ask the Audience segment over here and ask you to share an HVAC horror story. So if you have any horror stories, it doesn't have to be super bad. If you have a super bad one, then feel free. But even if you don't, if you've got something to share, we'd love to hear it. If you have experienced anything that wasn't fun, whether it be a company, heating and air system, a thermostat, something that was kind of a pain for you to deal with, we'd love to hear about that. Share that in our chat as well. Let's see. Bruce says, sure, if there's anybody else we can see you fine, I can see you fine. Nice. On my end, I can see me fine too. The camera looks good. The chat looks fine. So you guys see right here on my screen, there's a chat right here. But see, this is what I'm having to go to read your comments. I have to go to this, whereas usually on my software, I can click on things and go through the comments, and you see right now, Arch's comment from 20 minutes ago is showing up, but nothing since the last 20 minutes is showing up. So anyway, I'm just complaining. You guys know me. I'm just complaining. So Charlene, welcome to the show. I don't know if I've seen your name before, so welcome. I'm in Central Florida. I was in the residential building scene years ago, now looking to replace an HVAC system, new in 2005, and replaced flex ducts in the attic, original in 1984. Wow. She also says, why are they now strapping flex duct to attic joists? It seems defeatist. By lifting them out of the insulation, it increases the duct heat. I don't know the answer to that. I think every I'm just reading some of the other comments. I don't know the answer to that. I have customers that that their ductwork is buried under the insulation. In fact, one of the new things today is they have the spray foam insulation that they're spraying ductwork with now. And it's pretty cool because at first I was like, this is a little snake oil-ish. But as time has gone on, I actually think it's pretty cool stuff because hypothetically it's sealing the ductwork as well as insulating it better. And so, if the ductwork needed to be, restrapped in some way and you could not do that, well, obviously that might not be ideal. So, as Tech Junkie just pointed out, flex duct can be buried, but um, should not be strapped. It just I don't know if that there's any I don't know if there's a code necessarily. I could be wrong. I don't do a lot of new construction. We do more service and fixing other people's stuff. Um, but I have had inspectors come behind us and say, "Hey, I want another strap here or there, or let's get that up or whatever." But I don't know if there's an actual code that says it has to be strapped up like that. In fact, Charlene, I would think that you should be able to say to the contractor, "Hey, I want this ductwork to be under the insulation. I want it to be insulated better." And I would think a good contractor is going to hear you on that. So Carl says, I had a lady slap me. Um, did you know her, Carl? um, let's see. Arch says, talk about a satisfied customer. Emery says, I had an ancient 1970s GE unit in my old house that went out in 100-degree summer and had to go one day without AC. That's my horror story. One day is nothing compared to some folks. I've had folks that we've helped with our guide and folks at Griffin Air for one reason or another that had to go longer than that. In fact, we started at kind of like an extra anybody that's a part of our maintenance program that we call it the VIP club. If they are without AC, we started bringing them portable units so that way they can at least make it through while we're waiting on a part or equipment or whatever. But I it's still not fun even going one day. We lost power. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it wasn't that long ago. And I don't know, maybe it has been a couple years because I don't think my daughter was born yet. But we went through a summer where we went about 4 days without power, and it was real hot. And so we had a generator running. I had we don't have a standalone generator, so I had this portable generator on wheels, drug up to the house, and had extension cords running everywhere, including putting one of those little portable units in our bedroom just to kind of get by. But you expect when the power goes out that you're going to be without for a little bit, right? You expect for it to be out for a few hours while they repair it, maybe even a day. But 2 days goes by, 3 days goes by, and then 4 days goes by, and you're like, how long until this ends? And I know some of you, I don't know if any of you guys live in Texas, but I know they went through something like that. I think they went a month during a real hot summer just a few years ago. I remember that. So let's see. Tech Junkie says flex duct can be buried and should not be strapped up, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, I think my answer is depends on the house in general. So some houses you may, strap it up, but it just depends. So let's see. See, now y'all's now your there it goes. I swear. I was gonna say I'm seeing your chat go past it over here, but now I'm not seeing it over here. So hopefully I get my stuff together next week. You guys might end up firing me at some point. Charlene says, I considered spray foam for insulation, but I do know that my joist engineering is not considered for the added weight. Interesting. Yeah, and I'm not talking about the spray foam that, because I know there is that too, where you spray it in between the joists, if it's in your attic, so you would spray it on the roof joists. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually spraying the ductwork itself I've seen where they're starting to do that, well, I mean, not starting it. They've been doing it for a few years now. And there's nobody around here doing it. I've only seen it once or twice in our area, but I see it online all the time. Let's see. Tech Junkie says I needs to be buried within 4 or 6 inches of conditioned space and covered with 18 inches or something of insulation, but it has to be air sealed and mastic paste and best practices used. He says, Josh, you didn't get hit by Derico in 2012, did you? I don't think so. I don't recognize that name. But where I live now, the big one they always talk about is Hurricane Isabel, which was before I actually lived here, but apparently it messed up a lot of stuff for folks around here. Charlene says I just went through 3 days of no AC in July and 100 plus degrees heat index. Wow. I don't know how. I mean, I would have to go stay somewhere. I don't think I could do that, especially with my little girl. We would have to figure something out. Arch says there was a news segment on a lady in Phoenix that had no AC in her home, was 99 degrees inside. Some big local HVAC outfit donated a new heat pump. That was nice. In Tucson, 100 homes are without power after a storm yesterday. Wow. Hopefully they get those folks back on, because I know you guys out in Arizona, y'all really deal with it. Bob says we had 3 days without power in Houston during the winter and worrying about frozen pipes. Bob, are you in Houston? I feel like maybe you've told me where you're at before, but that's where I was. I was in Houston. I actually stayed in Cypress last week. And of course, the factory is in Waller, just outside of Houston. So we had 3 days without power in Houston. Crazy. Charlene says, I agree. I do not want it strapped up. Been out of the industry a while. Didn't know if new code, just wondered. Yeah, I mean, there's also, you guys in Florida have codes that no one else has. There's a few things that, especially when it comes from a humidity standpoint, y'all have to deal with things that other parts of the country don't. So Louisiana and Florida in general, as a state, have certain codes and things that they do in general to deal with that. Tech Junkie says the back half of my neighborhood spends more time without power than with power. Been like that for years. Tech Junkie says code for strapping that I know for certain is that it shouldn't be allowed to sag more than 2 inches. Bob says, yes, I'm in a town called Tomball. Hopefully I'm saying that right. 20 miles north of Houston. Very cool. Well, Bob, I'm going to be back down there if you want to grab show me where the best steak is around. I don't know how far that is from Cypress, but Cypress is kind of northwest, which if you live in that area. And I'll buy you a steak if you just let me know. Shoot me an email. Chad, welcome to the show. I don't think I've seen your name on our show before. Apologize if you have been on our show before, but Chad says both my AC units just went out, 16-year-old systems, and it hurts the pockets. And Tech Junkie says I'd get this repaired. Chad, that's interesting that both went out. Was it a power surge, or it's just kind of ironic that they both went out there at the same time. Now I will say if you have a company telling you they both went out and they're trying to sell you something, maybe get a second opinion. So Bob says we're 10 miles away from Cypress. Yeah. So we ate at a couple cool places there. One place we ate at, it was I think it was only open for lunch and breakfast, but we got there about 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 or 11 o'clock. And it was 10. It was still pretty early. And so from 10 to about 11:15, there was a line out the door almost the entire time we were there. And it was good. So I just couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, I can't imagine what a place like this would be, on a Saturday night. So, but I don't think they were open for dinner. So Arch says we're surviving using a couple of portable ACs in our house. It's actually bearable, and we might make through the summer before having a couple of mini splits installed, waiting for the IRA rebates. Nice. Yeah, I tell you, those portable ACs, I have surprised a few of our customers at how well they do. Because I'll have customers say, "Oh, I want, bring me 5 of them." And I'm like, "You don't need 5 of them." And they're like, "Yeah, I do. I got I got I got 1,200 square feet." And I'm usually those little units on most days, maybe not the hottest of days, but those little units, I've seen them just 1,000 square feet here in Virginia. One unit could do, you know, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. And so I don't know what the BTUs are and all that as far as that goes, but I will say I've been quite impressed a few times with how well they do. Tech Junkie says Arch window units are a lot more efficient if you got ductwork than skip the mini splits. Chad says, yes, first time on stream. Mice chewed through supply lines on one. Other system, not sure, but AC isn't keeping up. Ah, ouch. Let's see. Arch says, looked into those, but we have sliding windows. Yeah, if you got sliding windows, that kind of narrows it down, doesn't it? Good enough. I'm going to break away to another segment again. And another thing that we have seen in our industry is line. So one segment that we'll sometimes do is fake inventions or inventions that kind of come out of my brain. And some of them are kind of goofy. We've talked about, geothermal systems where you drop the loops in when you're building foundations. We've talked about Bluetooth thermostats with no wiring in the walls at all. We've talked about thermostats that have sensing where they actually can use a thermal eye that sees, oh, you're hot, I need to turn on. And then we've also talked about these units that you would literally just screw them to the joists and they would be in the wall cavity and recessed, sort of like a mini split, but completely hidden. And so including the outdoor unit. So that's some of the inventions we've talked about in the past. Feel free to steal them and become millionaires off of my goofy inventions. Tonight's invention I want to throw out there is we have seen line sets come a long way. We've seen line sets made from different materials. We've seen these line sets that have quick connect type fittings on them and so on. And so tonight's invention, and it's kind of more of like a hypothetical invention. You would think that they would have come up with some sort of invention at this point where you could again, I'm just spitballing here, but we have so much technology that today it seems like a lot of the line sets they keep coming out with that are not copper are still not as good as old school copper. And so my invention was coming up with some way that you could use copper, that you continue to use copper, but have it set up to where instead of having to braze it or swage it, but just some sort of like quick connect fittings that with the technology we have today, I don't know why we haven't been able to come up with something already, but where these guys should be able to just kind of shove it in there and, have the line sets already attached. But, we see some of the line sets that are coming out, especially with these quick connects or these other materials. So we've seen these line sets that almost have like a plastic jacket and maybe either aluminum or some sort of outer coating. And what happens is when you have those types of fittings, there's all this extra slack and, there's no way to, repair them. So you can't kind of cut off the bad part and rebraze it or reswage it. And so, that's kind of my goofy invention for tonight, having some sort of, whether it doesn't have to be copper, but just some sort of material, some sort of line set that you would just get it to the unit and you would just chop it off in some way, tubing cutters or something, and then have some sort of compression fitting or quick connect or some sort of fitting to where, especially with today's technologies, I'm surprised they have not been able to come up with something that has kind of caught on a little better. And I see some of you guys are already throwing out ProPress. ProPress, I think that's, you know, one way of doing that, right? But even without ProPress, you would think that there's, or Zoom Lock, I think is the ProPress, I think is the plumbing version of that. But the Zoom Lock fittings, there should be some sort of way to, especially with these plastic line sets and all these other materials, to have them as like a compression fitting of some type. I mean, I don't know, maybe it would have a barb on the end, and then you could just kind of slip it over and then, tighten it down, or I don't know. I mean, I'm just spitballing. This is an invention that's never come out, but there's engineers out there that are way smarter than me. Come up with something, people. Uh, so that's my goofy invention for tonight for our breakout segment for goofy inventions. So back to our chat. Let's see. Make sure I don't miss anybody here. Chad says power lines. Tech Junkie says just get it repaired unless the compressor burns out. Keep what you have. Chad says, yeah, telling me compressor is shot due to shorting out. We have bad mice here in Wisconsin. Arch says, horror story. A poor HVAC contractor in Tucson was electrocuted when the crane made contact with a power line. Man, that's tough. Poor guy was doing some work for a nonprofit in Tucson. Man, that is tough. I tell you, as I get older, the more sensitive I am to things. I remember being younger and just, I don't know, being very selfish and not caring about things. And the older I get, the more, I mean, I don't want to say like I want to cry. I didn't know the guy, but the more I'm like, man, especially when you hear like young folks, when they're just so young, and one poor decision, we've all made dumb mistakes, right? We've all made poor decisions, and I know I have, in the workplace, and I've actually had quite a few boo-boos over the years. And so, it just takes one. That's the other thing, is how dangerous some of this stuff is. It only takes one boo-boo, one mess up, and that's it, So I guess if I could leave you with anything tonight, if you are watching my show's about heating and air, but I will, I'll get a little sentimental with you and just say, if you have something on your bucket list, do it this next year. Do it in 2023 before the end of the year. If you've always wanted to go on a cruise and you never have, and you've always said, well, I will when I retire, go this year. Or if you've always wanted to visit Niagara Falls, or if you've always wanted to go to Key West, where the southernmost part of the country is, or if you have anything on your bucket list, make sure you do it this next year. That's my call tonight. For anybody that sees this. Tech Junkie says, I'd get a second opinion. Bob says, we had a customer with a German Shepherd pup that chewed through refrigerant lines. Wow. That's German Shepherds, man. I have met a few of them, and most of them are really sweet, but you don't want to be on their bad side. They're very loyal to their owners, which is not a bad thing. Especially if, if you're their owner and you ever do need them, right? Tech Junkie says they are refrigerant approved. At a time, they made suction lines pre-charged in plastic, and they were terrible 50 years ago. Yeah, that was 50 years ago. You would think they'd be able to come up with something today. Something, they've got these gas lines that, they run now with the corrugated tubing. And I'm not saying that's the solution here. But, you would think that, because in my opinion, from what I've seen to this day, copper line sets being brazed is still the best way of doing it today. And if that was not the case, then you wouldn't see them doing so much of it in the factories when they're actually building these units. So they're doing brazing of copper in the factories with all this machinery and everything. And you would think by now somebody would have come up with something a little better. It's we're still doing it the way we were 50 years ago, 30 years ago. And it's not like they haven't tried to come up with other solutions. That's just still the best way to do it to this day, you know. Tech Junkie says, I mean, they have to be strong enough to hold back 500 psi. Very true. When I was younger, I was like, man, he's dead. Womp womp. Now I'm like, no, he's dead. That's sad. Yeah, same. I'm becoming a sensitive old man. Carl says 5 years ago or so, an HVAC tech was electrocuted in an attic troubleshooting a drain issue. We had a guy years ago. I want to say it wasn't here in Virginia, but I want to say it was just down in North Carolina, that he was just simply crawling through a crawl space and there was a wire hanging down. And I guess he had gotten up against it and couldn't get off of it. And that, because he was in a crawl space and it just basically, he lost his life. So yeah, you got to be careful out there. Emery says it's 99 degrees at sunset in, I guess that means Texas. Thank God for HVAC. Amen to that. It's 9:31, guys. We're going to wrap up here shortly. But before we do, if you have any good heating and air companies, will take any more questions that pop in here. So if you do have any last minute questions, heating and air questions, feel free to drop those in there. But as we wrap up and as those questions come in, we wrap up our show every week with the same way. And that is, if you know a good heating and air company, even if you have shouted them out before, let's give them some love, share who they are and where they're located. Let's shout out the good heating and air companies out there, because we all know that they're not all good. And so let's show some love to the ones that deserve it. And so throw their name in our chat, where they're located, and, that way, who knows, someone else in your area might be able to, use that company too. Tech Junkie says, wasn't there a guy in West Virginia or someplace near that died working on a dishwasher? I think he was replacing a dishwasher for his brother's family and he got electrocuted. I haven't heard about that, but I mean, it's obviously, even a dishwasher, there's electricity there. You got to make sure you kill power and verify it. And I've heard of, I remember when I was a kid hearing about a guy that he did not bleed the capacitor on a microwave. So he killed power. He did everything right. But then the microwave or the capacitor was holding charge and it killed him. So yeah. Charlene says, thanks for your tips. Thank you, Charlene. Chad says, thanks for all you share. Thank you. And Tech Junkie says, Griffin Air. Amen to that. Amen. If you are in our area, we're in the Williamsburg, Middle Peninsula, Northern Neck areas of Virginia. We're busy. Griffin Air is really busy right now. My guys are working hard, and it's been hot, and nowhere near as hot as Arizona or Texas, but it's still been pretty hot. It finally got hot, and our guys have been really busy because of it. So anyway, what's the difference between a contactor and a capacitor? Essentially, a contactor is just a switch that uses electricity to open and close. And a capacitor is a component that it can do a couple different things, but essentially it can hold charge. Depending on if it's AC or DC voltage, it does different things. But they're used in a lot of heating and air systems to help motors and compressors get started when they have that initial spike in resistance trying to get started. Spike in amperage, it's because of the resistance. Gary says, thank you, Josh. Always a great way to spend a Tuesday evening. Thanks, buddy. I will be in Maine for work next week, but if I am back to the hotel by showtime, I will join in. Travel safe, Gary. Tech Junkie says, yeah, capacitors hold an unbelievable amount of power. Yeah, they really do. Especially, I mean, some of them are tiny, right? So, all right, guys. Well, we're going to end with that. We're going to be back next week, Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern time. So figure out what time that is in your area if you're not on the East Coast. And we'll be here live answering heating and air questions. And on that, I'll just say, make it a great week, and we'll see you then. Take care.